Welcome back to Digital Transformation Podcast Series. I'm your host, Demna, and today we're diving into the foundations of digital transformation, because without the right systems, strategy, and culture in place, even the most powerful technology won't deliver lasting change. This is episode 2, Foundations First, the Enterprise Architect's Playbook. I'm thrilled to be joined by Indra, an enterprise and solution architect who has led some of the world's most ambitious digital transformations. In today's conversation, we'll unpack how enterprise architecture shapes transformation strategy, how to navigate legacy systems without breaking business continuity, and why cultural alignment is just as critical as clean code. So let's get into it. Indra, digital transformation has become such a buzzword in recent years. From every corner, you hear how the world is changing due to digital transformation. But from your perspective as an enterprise architect, how do you define it today? Has your definition changed over time, especially with the acceleration we are seeing due to AI, cloud, and remote work?
Hey, how's it going? Thank you for having me. That's a great question to start with. For me, digital transformation isn't just about bringing in new technologies, switching from legacy stack to the new fancy one. It's really about changing how company operates at its core. It's about rethinking how value is created and how decisions are made, how people work, and how the business connects with customers. I have been working on such initiatives for the last 10 years, and early on, digital transformation felt more like digitization or even automation, meaning moving manual and paper processes into digital tools. And today, with AI, cloud, new technologies, and when the remote work became normal, the meaning has absolutely evolved. Of course, my definition has changed over time as well, as I changed roles. And currently, from my perspective, now it's about being adaptive, scalable, and ready for constant change. Now I see transformation as a continuous journey, not a one-time project.
In your experience, what are the biggest obstacles that organizations face when they decide to go digital? Are these challenges more technical or cultural? And do you think most companies are truly prepared for what digital transformation requires?
You're absolutely right. Digital transformation sounds exciting on paper, but in practice, it's often messy. And from my experience, from what I've seen, the biggest obstacles are usually not technical, they are cultural, organizational, and even strategic. Culture is a huge one. People resist to change, especially when it threatens how they worked for years. One major challenge is alignment on vision, priorities. Thus, digital initiatives can easily become disconnected. For example, different departments run their own digital projects with little coordination. The result is a duplicated effort, incompatible systems, and a fragmented customer experience. Sometimes companies jump into transformation without shared understanding of what they are trying to achieve. Another obstacle is the lack of readiness. Many companies underestimate what transformation really takes. It's not just buying new tools, right? As I said, it's changing business processes. In hiring, it's organizational change and sometimes even business model change. And that level of change requires strong leadership, clear communication, readiness to have trade-offs. One more problem I see these days is over-engineering. Some teams, sometimes even leadership team, get caught up in buzzwords. Okay, let's bring AI everywhere. Blockchain, microservices, without solving real problems. For example, we don't need AI everywhere. So sometimes whole program turns into a tech experiment rather than a business enabler. And last but not least, underestimation of legacy complexity. Many initiatives fail because they don't account for how deeply legacy systems and processes are embedded in day-to-day operations. Companies have really to plan very, very carefully. And to sum up, while technology plays a really big role, right, transformation ultimately succeeds or fails based on how well company aligns strategy, processes, peoples, and of course, priorities.
Could you share an example, either from your own work or something you've observed, where a digital transformation journey either really took off or went completely sideways? What made the difference? What should product and tech leaders learn from it?
Happy to share. Yeah, there is a lot to say here, but I'll try to keep it focused. Okay, a story from a large-scale transformation I was part of. So imagine a Tier 1 telecom operator, the largest in its country, over 30 years old, with around 80 million subscribers. The organization was between central headquarters and 7 regional divisions, each with its own systems, processes, and even digital strategies. So, the goal was bold: to unify everything under one digital umbrella. Single business support system that could handle sales, service activation, billing, customer support across all regions. In essence, the transformation wasn't just about IT, but about reorganizing the entire company around standardized processes and a common technology stack. It was ambitious and exciting. So, leadership in the IT division, they started smart by building the right foundation. So they hired a team that had real experience delivering similar large-scale transformation projects. And that's how I joined the program, thanks to my ex-colleagues that took me in together. So thanks to that, we were able to deliver the MVP in just 3 months because people knew how to start, how basically to tackle, and even to bring this shiny, great MVP solution quick. But after that, all the challenges started. So MVP earned us the green light to move forward. We selected one region as a pilot and spent the next 18 months working across time zones, side by side with business experts, analysts, developers, testers. It was a full cross-functional team. And the result, successful go-live of the new IT stack in the pilot region. That was really cool. What worked really well? So we had a highly talented team with deep experience to drive transformation program. Business departments committed, dedicated people to the program. So the domain expertise was invaluable. The core platforms like CRM, billing, and order management were more than flexible from technology standpoint, and also there was really strong support from IT leadership, which made a big difference. What was more challenging there, right? Business experts were often hesitant to change established processes, even when they were outdated. Legacy systems in the regions, especially those which tied to physical service provisioning, were technically limiting. And the owners, the more technical people who were in the company around like 20 years or 30 years. So the owners of these legacy systems were understandably resistant to change. There were a lot of, let's say, not conflicts, but it was sometimes it was struggle in communication. And while the strategy was clear, the strategy was driven mainly by the IT organization, not from the top level of the company. And that created some misalignment in priorities. And for example, some departments didn't fully understand what we're trying to do, and they didn't understand the broader goals of the whole program. Despite all these challenges, the pilot was considered a success. However, it took 18 months, and I say that's a lot. And the program was approved to roll out across the remaining 6 regions. As far as I know, today, those regional organizations have now been retired entirely, which tells me that the lessons from the pilot were taken seriously and the transformation is continuing as intended, which is really cool.
One of the recurring debates in transformation is around legacy infrastructure. In your opinion, should companies aim to rebuild from scratch, or is there more value in incrementally modernizing what they already have?
Let me give you a real-world view of how this plays out. In my opinion, it really depends on the context, the business goals, the urgency, the risk tolerance, budget, and the current state of the systems. In most cases, I lean toward incremental modernization. Legacy systems often contain years, even decades of embedded business logic. Replacing them completely can be really risky, expensive, and time-consuming. Plus, You can't just pause business operations while rebuilding everything from scratch, right? You still run the business, still need to earn and provide the service or what you need to do in your business, whatever. So a more practical and sustainable approach is to decouple critical functions, modernize piece by piece, and use APIs or event-driven architectures to bridge old and new. Yes, there is going to be bridging solution, but this will allow you to deliver value faster and reduce risk. That said, there are rare cases where starting fresh is the right move. As an example, when the legacy system is a real blocker to innovation, or when the cost of maintaining this legacy system outweighs the cost of rebuilding. So the key is to have a clear architectural vision and a roadmap that's aligned with business priorities. Whether you are modernizing or rebuilding, it's not just a technical decision, it's a strategic one, because you need to be aware of possible risk, trade-offs possible, and sometimes even drop in your revenue. Sometimes. Because during the change, company is under really huge stress. I would say that this is really strategic decision that has to be made on the top.
How does enterprise architecture help steer digital transformation efforts in the right direction? What does a scalable and sustainable architecture look like in a digitally evolving company?
This one deserves a deeper look, so I'm glad you asked. At its core, architecture connects business strategy with technology execution. It helps ensure that digital initiatives aren't happening in silos, but are part of a bigger, coherent picture. A strong architecture practice brings structure, clarity, and long-term thinking to what can be a chaotic and reactive process. Nobody likes reactive architecture. As for what scalable and sustainable architecture looks like, I would say it's built around a few key principles. First one, business-driven priorities. You are not just building elegant systems in order to build it, right? But systems that move the business forward. Modularity is the second one, so you can evolve parts of the system without breaking the whole. For example, if you have modules, right, it's much easier for you to start changes, to bring changes into your system. Third one, it's very important to mention domain-driven design, structuring systems around real business domains. That helps align technical architecture with organizational understanding, supports better ownership, accountability within teams. The fourth is APIs and interoperability. Using APIs, common data models, and event-driven patterns to connect systems cleanly. And one of the most important principle is cloud-native thinking, leveraging elasticity, automation, and resilience by design. We can build beautiful, elegant systems, but non-functional requirements are very important. And to sum it up, it's not about having a perfect architecture. It's about having a flexible one that can evolve with the company. And as I mentioned in the previous question, it's about smart trade-offs. And when you plan, you have to prepare a detailed executable roadmap, architecture roadmap. And that will bring clarity to everyone you deal with.
How do you ensure that digital initiatives actually align with business goals and not just become isolated IT projects? Are there specific frameworks or principles you rely on to guide that alignment?
You just hit one of my favorite topics. Making sure digital projects align with business goals is one of the biggest challenges and one of the most important things to get right. I see a lot of companies run into trouble when tech teams and business teams work in isolation. And to avoid that, I always try to bring everyone together earlier. It's called shift left. So at the very beginning, we start with the simple questions. What is the business trying to achieve? What is the real problem we are solving? And what is the value? One thing that really helps is to think in terms of capabilities. Instead of starting with systems or tools, sometimes sometimes I receive requirements when everything is written like system A should do ABC, system B should do 1, 2, 3, etc., etc. But it doesn't work like that. So instead of starting with system or tools, we start with what capabilities do we need to solve particular problem or to enable this business goal. For example, instead of saying we need a new CRM, we ask, what do we need to be able to do? Better manage customer data? Or what? We need to speed up customer onboarding? What is the final goal? That helps to create a shared language between tech and business, understand real problems in this business domain, and avoid jumping into solutions and different conclusions too early. Sometimes business, they really try to provide like business requirements. But sometimes their business requirements solving just symptoms. They're not solving root causes. That's why when you start this communication, you always have to ask questions. You need to dig deeper and understand real problem, and then find a solution. Framework-wise, I have found OKRs, objectives and key results, very effective when done right, of course, because they force you to define success in measurable ways and make sure all teams are pulling in the same direction. Another helpful principle is to design around value streams, mapping how value flows through the organization and aligning architecture and teams to support that flow. Because in the end, we are not creating architecture just for matter of architecture. We want to bring business value, right? At the end of the day, it's about continuous conversation, not a one-time alignment meeting. The best outcomes happen when architects, leaders, business owners, engineering are working side by side throughout the journey. Results are always better when it's a teamwork.
Culture, leadership, and talent often make or break transformation efforts. What have you seen in companies that succeed in creating buy-in across teams, and how do they approach hiring and upskilling?
You are right. Technology is just one part of the equation. Culture, leadership, and people make the biggest difference in whether transformation succeeds or not. In the companies I've seen succeed, leadership sets the tone. Successful organizations don't just announce a transformation, they model the behavior. Leaders are visible, involved, and open about the journey. They explain the why, and they help people feel part of the change, and that builds trust. Because when everything starts, people in place, they're afraid that with the transformation they will lose their job, right? So for that, we have to create psychological safety. Change is hard, and people need to feel safe to ask questions, try new things, and even make mistakes. That kind of environment takes work, but it's worth it. When it comes to talent, smart organizations don't just focus on hiring digital natives. They invest in upskilling the existing people. And that's how actually the trust is built, right? Because people see that company is growing, and I will grow and develop my skills with this company further, and my company helps me. So this approach might include internal trainings, pairing business teams with engineers, job shadowing, mentorship programs, or rotational programs across departments, so people can try do new things. The message is transformation is something we do with our people and not to them. And importantly, they don't try to do everything at once. They also can find change champions, people inside the company who believe in the vision and can help others to get on board. That makes the change feel more real and more human.
Digital transformation isn't a solo sport. How important is cross-functional collaboration in these efforts? And how do you manage resistance from different departments, especially those more traditional or risk-averse? Any practical tips from your playbook?
I love this one. Let's get into it. Transformation, as I mentioned already, is a team sport. It's not something IT can do alone. You need business, you need product, operations, legal, finance, marketing, everyone working together. Cross-functional collaboration is what makes or breaks these efforts. If teams aren't aligned, you end up with delays, frustration, conflict situations, and solutions that don't really solve the right problems. Collaboration basically ensures you are solving real problems, not just building isolated solutions. But of course, not everyone is excited about change, especially in more traditional or risk-averse parts of the company. So here's what I found helps. First, involve people early. Don't build something and then try to sell it to others. Invite them into the process from the very beginning. That way, they feel ownership, not resistance. And again, this builds trust. People provide lots of hints during the process. You just need to listen and ask right questions. Second, start small and show results. That's why we always start with MVPs, right? So a quick win in one department can build a trust and open doors, and also give some budget to continue this journey. So success speaks louder than slides. Third, listen, understand their concerns, people concerns, Often resistance comes from fear of losing control, being left behind, or fail. If you show you are listening and supporting, things shift. And the fourth, last but not least, tell the business story. Don't talk only in tech terms. Keep the communication transparent. The more you align transformation with real business outcome, like revenue, efficiency, customers satisfaction, the easier it is to build momentum across the organization. That gets people's attention. So you need to show numbers. And over time, collaboration becomes a habit and the organization gets better at changing together.
Awesome. Indra, let's wrap it up with some wisdom. If you were advising a newly appointed CIO or product leader who's about to lead their company's transformation efforts, what's the one piece of advice you'd absolutely want them to hear before they begin?
If I could give just one piece of advice, it would be this. Start with clarity, not on technology, but on purpose. Before choosing tools or frameworks, get crystal clear on why you are transforming. What are the real business outcomes you are trying to achieve? What will success look like, not just for IT, but for customers, employees, and the business as a whole? What metrics we want to change? Because digital transformation isn't about being more digital, it's about being more effective, more agile, more customer-centric, and that only works if your tech strategy is deeply tied to your business strategy. Also, don't try to do it alone. Surround yourself with strong partners across the business. Build a culture of learning. Celebrate small wins, parties, small parties. And remember, transformation is a journey, not a finish line. The organizations that thrive are the ones that stay curious, stay adaptable, and stay connected to their purpose.
Thank you, Indra, for accepting our invite and sharing your insights.
Thanks again for our opportunity. These questions weren't just smart, they also reminded me why I love doing this work. I hope the insights we talked about can help others navigate their own transformation journeys. Thank you.